But if you don't have this and it rains, you're in for a wet night, because the ventilation on this tent is brilliant. However, hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Saturday morning and we are going out on a wild camp this afternoon. It's due to be really nice weather over in Snowdonia, so fingers crossed we've got a clear night. But before we go, I'm going to stick the tents up in the garden and just double check a few things to make sure they're all sound before we head out into the middle of nowhere. I'll take you through a few things that I like to personally check before I take the tent out, before I use it if it's been sat in the bag for a while, and it just gives me the peace of mind that I know that there's going to be no issues before we even start. So let's turn this thing into the Naturehike Cloud Peak 2. Right, there we go. Naturehike Cloud Peak 2 is all up. So I'll take you around what I check in this tent and on this tent before I ever go out on a wild camp. So first thing you may want to check is to make sure you've got a decent amount of pegs. I've got ground dog type pegs, and there's enough there for this tent, so that's fine. I'm happy with that. I've got this bag. Yeah, I'll tell you what this is for a little bit later on. And all I do is I make sure that all the zips on the tent are done up before I check anything. I've checked this one on the outside, so that's fine. But I'll take a quick walk around the tent, yeah, making sure that all the sides are fine and they don't have any holes in them. Yeah, all the guy lines are there, and all the poles and all of the clips are not damaged. There's no issues with this door. What I also do is make sure that if I'm checking the door, I make sure it opens all the way. Good. And then there's a little clip behind there if I want to put it tied up like the other one. And then make sure I come and check all these zips on the inner, just so that I know that the zips work. They're not going to cause me any problems when I get out into the middle of nowhere. Do that one up there. Yeah, not a problem. This one opens from the bottom as well. No issues there. No issues on that side. I'll have a look on the inside of the tent, make sure I've not left any rubbish in here from a previous wild camp. Got a hook there for the light, and then I just check the inner mesh, make sure that it's not damaged and I've not got any holes in it that I may need to repair at some point. Obviously, if I do need to repair any mesh, I'll make sure I do that before I go on the camp. Yeah, I don't want to be faffing about in the middle of nowhere trying to fix a tent, so I'll get it repaired now so that it doesn't cause me any problems later on. Next, I'll make sure I check the ground sheet all the way up to the corners. Yeah, make sure that there's no tears in it, it's not been punctured in any way on this bathtub, and yeah, that there's no issues, and I'm not going to sort of start letting water into the tent. There's a nice seam seal in there that looks well intact, so that's good. And then back onto the outside of the tent, so there's another bit that I want to check, which I want to make sure you'll want to make sure that you've got if you're taking out the Naturehike Cloud Peak 2. I'll show you what that is now. You're going to need this section, yeah, this little section at the top. So let me show you what's underneath it. I'll unclip it from these little ties. But if you don't have this and it rains, you're in for a wet night, because the ventilation on this tent is brilliant. However, if you don't have this cover, yeah, and it rains, you're going to get really wet. So I'll make sure we'll go around that cover, make sure there's no holes in it. All looks good to me. Happy days. That's probably the most important bit of kit that you're going to need when it comes to taking this tent out wild camping. If you forget that and it chucks it down, you're going to get absolutely soaked. So there's a few more things that I do check. One of those things is the ground sheet, because this comes with a ground sheet attached to the bottom of the tent already, which is ideal really. It helps protect the bathtub. That's attached at the bottom there, you can see it there. I've checked that when I put the tent away usually, because it's underneath and I don't want to faff about getting under it, but I'll check that after every use. And the other thing I check is just to make sure that the inner tent and the outer tent are fully connected. That's via all of these little toggles you'll see, these yellow ones. That's what connects the inner to the outer, and it stays up permanently. Actually, I've just spotted one there on the other side of this that's not connected, so I'll go and do that now, and then that's the tent fully checked, fully sorted, good to go wild camping. One quick tip is that if you do find anything wrong with your tent, get it sorted straight away. Things that tend to usually break on the tents, you may find a hole in the sheet, so you can sort that with a bit of patch fix type of stuff. I've got a few things on this jacket, I'll show you now. You can see I've patched my actual Patagonia jacket up with some of the patch. It's sort of a mesh type fabric. I just use that to patch the hole in the tent. I'm not too worried about using Gucci stuff as long as it just doesn't let too much water in. Another thing that breaks quite often, or can do, you usually trip over them all the time if you go camping, is the guy lines. I always take a spare guide line or two, just in case one of these snaps, and I can just re-thread it back through. And another thing to note is that down at the bottom of the tent, you've got where the ground sheet actually connects to the inner and the outer. I just make sure that those hooks there that you can see, if you can see them, those little black ones, that they're all on there and they're not damaged. The reason for that is because it becomes a bit of a problem if they're damaged and the ground sheet or the inner tent starts to really sag. It can increase the condensation. So they're all good, we're all good. This tent's going away. If you've got any questions about this tent or this video or any other video, make sure you leave questions in the comments and I will get back to every single one of you. On that note, take care, have a great weekend. See you in the next video.